Radiohead's influence on modern music. Radiohead emerged from the fading 90s British pop invasion with a sound that was moody, melodic, and explosive. The roots planted firmly in both alternative culture and the out rock legacy of such classic rockers like Pink Floyd. The release of their 1997's OK Computer, Radiohead were among the most closely watched bands of the decade, drawing from influences as varied as Queen, REM, or Queen Rem, Miles Davis. The Oxford musicians were embraced as saviors of modern guitar rock, only to resurface in 2000 with a new sound heavy with electronics, minimal vocals, and a few guitars. Their lead singer and guitarist, thomyorke, first turned into music while growing up in Scotland and Oxford, England. Born with his left eye closed and paralyzed, he endured 5 corrective surgeries before the age of 6. He learned to play guitar while unhappy at boarding school, where he met his bassist, Colin Greenwood. The two dissolved as members and scattered to different universities. The quintet regrouped in 1991, and it's where it gets crazy. 1991. In 1991, a lot of crazy things happened for Radiohead before they were formed. Now, in 1991, they formed the name Radiohead together, taken from a Talking Head song. Radiohead quickly built a following on the Oxford club scene and soon drew record company interest from London. The band signed to UK label Parlophone within 1 year, and on the Billboard Hot Wish I Was Special, and High and Dry. Now with OK Computer, absolute hit in 1997, co-produced by the band and Nigel Godrich, an engineer on the band. The band enjoyed wide acclaim through York, and the band denied any coherent theme to the album. Various tracks including Karma Police and Paranoid Android examined encroaching technology and millennial anxiety. OK Computer topped many of that year's critics polls and won the Best Alternative Music Grammy for that year. Even though the album enjoyed number top 40 singles, Radiohead
Miles Davis' Bitches Brew.
Yeah, wow. That was...
When did you discover Miles Davis?
That was sort of about... Well, Johnny bought it for me 2 years ago, and I listened to it once and thought, no, don't like this.
Really?
You know, like you do with certain albums, you just sort of, no, I can't cope with this. And then I listened to it again, really, really stoned in an airport, and thought it was amazing.
Yeah.
But then another sort of, I don't know, 6 months went by, and I've just recently started listening to it properly on headphones, really loud. And I mean, I didn't know before, but there's 3 drum kits going on. There's 2 people playing Fender Rhodes pianos, and he's sort of mixing it all up and down. And you know, if you describe that to someone, they'd say, "My God, that sounds like it's going to be awful." But there's something about it that I personally, at the moment, that's the most inspiring record I have. I just put that on and I'm just buzzing for the whole day.
Have you bought other Miles Davis recordings? Or it's the only one?
That's the only one.
Still digesting this
Johnny
one?
bought me Kind of Blue as well, and I didn't really like that. I kind of thought it was a bit... there's a Cecil Taylor record where he sounds like he's just... This is some piano player and he just sounds like he's got the cat, and the cat's jumping down on the piano, and the drummer's out of time, and there's something about it.
Have you ever seen documentaries on Miles Davis?
I haven't, no. Johnny is an obsessive Miles Davis person.
Because he had really a punk attitude towards, you know, his art. You know, he didn't
what
give a
freaks
damn.
me out is I was in a record shop in Paris, and for some reason it was Paris and the Miles Davis section was like a whole block.
Oh yeah.
And they're all different. It's like, hey, how do you do that? You must have had a tape recorder going on.
Evolution of Radiohead. Let's start at the very beginning. The first era, which had tracks like You and other tracks of like Creep, they had to do this. Then became more intertwined with instrumentation. Focus shifted to rhythm. Though a few complex rhythms were found in earlier albums, through the use of unusual mixed meters. Kid A and Amnesiac stayed mostly within common meters and played instead with the body tempo, displaced accents, and complex syncopated rhythms. But all that just tends to say their sound evolved quickly to a more electronic leaning sound from the grungy punk rock get together, in a seemingly perfect balance. Lyrics were panicked and cynical, making the love-centered lyrics of In Rainbows, which dropped in 2007, though still somewhat darker than the lyrics of many bands at the time. They seem much lighter in contrast. In Rainbows, they use some more acoustic sounds with piano and guitar and combine them with everything the band had previously done with grunge, electronic, and alternative sounds. Polytempo and the other types of complex rhythms continued to pervade the band's discography at the time. Guitars causing each new measure to start and another half beat later. The production was very strange. They had a straight production for it, not the typical rock band of the 2000s or the 90s. They were alternative
songs, each one like a little spirit that goes out. I said anima, not enema. A very
enema?
Yes.
Oh, enema.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, it could be an enema. I can't answer that. Yes, no.
You can't.
Maybe.
Yes, no, maybe.
Yeah.
Your songs are. The album is anima, but the songs are not necessarily little spirits that go out there.
No, they just happen.
Are they dreams?
A bit like Boris
Because you were
Johnson.
talking about dreamlike, sort of like dreamlike images or dreamlike states.
No, pass. Next. Sorry.
It's the shortest answer after
Sorry,
the longest
sorry.
pause.
I'll go out and come in again.
It was freighted. It was freighted with meaning.
Right, come in again.
I understand do you keep a dream diary?
No.
Oh, you've become interested in dreams. No, keep that in. 100%. 100% that stays in. I understand you've become interested in dreams.
Oh, really?
Yes. Well, I am interested in this. In what part of dreams interest you? Do you find meaning in them?
I find it fascinating that I've been reading a book called Why We Sleep, and I found it fascinating.
2011. They dropped the album King of Limbs in 2011, and this was less the band making a statement and more the band making transitions and crazy experimentation to go on this album. Instead of just using the more conventional means of writing songs by coming up with writing the instrumentation, most of the album was created by first recording and sampling and looping the original recordings using software. Innovation right before our very eyes with the album King of Limbs. And in 2016, when they dropped the album A Moon-Shaped Pool, it came out after 5 years, and they didn't drop any music between those 5 year devices to show their higher level of experimentation through the years. Like with this style, the syncopated rhythm, 3/4 rhythm.
I saw that little genius they did there for sure.
Definitely.
DJ Crush.
Oh yeah.
Who is he?
He's on Moax, which is James Lavelle's dance label in Britain. Probably through Sony here, actually.
Yeah.
DJ Crush, I think he's Japanese. I don't know anything about him.
You know nothing about him, no?
I bought his first album called Turntableized because I like the cover, which was done by 3D from Massive Attack.
Okay.
And I've just bought the new one, which is Meiso, M-E-I-S-O.
Yeah.
And it's just more DJ Crush. It's really, really brilliant. And he's got people singing and rapping on it this time. The first one was instrumental. But he's just basically doing drum breaks, and he's basically just using turntables and virtually nothing else. And I just admire it. He's just really, really good at what he does. They're the best sort of drum breaks I've heard in a long time.
And that's what you discovered recently, DJ Crush.
Yeah.
On the other,
Okay.
stays mostly the same except when the offset 3 becomes a continuous stream of 8 notes in the bridge. In layman's terms, they used a really crazy, in fact, only a madman would attempt this pattern of making rhythms or writing music or even making the instrumentals. It only made more attempting because it was just not done before, and no one had ever tried this because they didn't know what it would sound like, whether it would sound absolutely dog shit or incredible. And Radiohead were willing to take that risk creatively. They didn't care about album sales, they didn't care about any of that. They cared about innovation in their music, which stood the test of time. And that is all, well, that's the evolution of Radiohead sound. Obviously they've released like more albums since then, more of like celebrational albums of their long careers and all that, but these are the main albums that are the core sound of Radiohead, the evolution of their sound. So this has been the evolution of Radiohead sound, and the next chapter we'll discuss just their journey and how they took over the scene in music entirely.
Fantastical and make life affirming in the sort of all the right ways, but I personally think that that's what the music's supposed to do. And if you write the words correctly, you could be absorbing all this stuff, but really the whole point is the music flows over you. Music basically is like mathematics, you know, and you're trying to form patterns, patterns that make you understand what is around you, and patterns that help you get through the next day. Like when I listen to the radio and stuff, when I hear a new piece of music that I've just got to get a hold of it, because I know it's going to help me through a particular thing until the next one, or it's like life affirming. The whole point of music is it's life affirming. The sickness of it for me, the bit I couldn't deal with, was that somehow this is a reason to exist, and somehow you get to a certain level or whatever of exposure or fame or whatever, and then suddenly you can communicate with other famous people on a higher level. And like waft around going, hi. And that was I just kind of thought that was a bit peculiar.
Do you think there's a sort of upside to being, well known, in that you can have huge influence?
I don't think you do. I think all you do is you turn on the media that week for 20 seconds to something, and then they turn on to the next thing. I don't think you have influence as such. All you do is that, and then that might get someone to sort of vaguely rethink about one little thing. But there's, I don't think. I think people are perfectly capable of making their own decisions, and God help them if they listen to me.
If you could pick one song that you'd like to be remembered by, what
How
would
to
it be?
Disappear, off Kid A.
Why?
Because it's the most beautiful thing we ever did, I think. We have this really amazing situation where I'm not quite sure whether it happens with other bands, but we have all these unofficial sites that are really like on top of what we're doing, more on top of what we're doing than we are. And our site itself is just like this mad sort of collage thing of our thoughts, and also a really good way of getting directly to people when we want to. So it's always been, from about Kid A onwards, it's been a source of directly trying to circumnavigate the media, and the media having to follow what's happening on the internet rather than the other way around. It sort of works to varying degrees, but I personally think that for Radiohead, it's what we do on the internet is much more important than except for like live performances on TV. It's by far the most important thing for us, and it has been for ages, because it's like it's not very it's like messy, and it's not very coherent and whatever, but it's us, and it's what we choose to put across, other than making music all the time.
And do you feel that relationship has deepened over the years with your fan base?
I think so. The most fun we have is when we do these things, the webcast things that we used to do, and we still do sometimes, which is just it's this mad situation where thousands of people.
I've been a puppet, a pauper, a pirate, a poet.
Continuation of Radiohead's journey. Now, Anima is not from Radiohead, but from thomyorke. I only added it to this documentary because thomyorke and the mix video Last I Heard. He embarked on an international tour to support his album. It became York's first #1 album on the Billboard electronic charts. The album was followed by Not the News Remix EP, featuring an extended version of Not the News plus remixes. Now, how did the video work? York would send Godrich sprawling unfinished tracks, and Godrich edited them into shorter samples and loops, which York wrote vocals to those samples and loops. Thomyorke and Godrich performed several Animal tracks, including Not the News, on the tour for York's previous album Tomorrow's Modern Boxes, which dropped in 2014. Philip Selway, the drummer for Radiohead, contributed sped up drums to Impossible Nuts. Joy Warnaka, the drummer for another of York's project, Atoms for Peace, appears at the end of BX. Now let's dive in straight to the music. Animal comprises of electronic music with layers of electronic fuzz and disconstructed noise. Of course, it's going to be very experimental because it's Thomyorke's root. It's Radiohead like type of sound. He said that it includes themes of anxiety and dystopia. He felt that dystopian environments were a really good way of expressing anxiety creatively. The Animal album. There was a film associated with it, directed by Paul Thomas Anderson, just an illustrative music film, mostly dancers and art performances in the film. I feel the album explores themes of dystopia very well and mixes with the way anxiety kills all of us slowly and how it makes us do crazy things despite us not wanting to or knowing better. And yeah, this is Thomyorke's latest album. Will Radiohead ever release another album? I don't know. Will they ever regroup and come back and create the most experimental album of all time? I don't know that either. It could happen, it could not happen. With the 9 albums Radiohead gave all of us that ended in 2016, those are the most experimental albums almost in all of music, or in all of music if we think about it broadly. But that is the Radiohead story, and that is also the story of Thomyorke. Thanks for watching this documentary, and it's been Nazar. See you in the next one. Peace.